I'm Abigail, 32, standing in my best friend Sadie's backyard, surrounded by pastel balloons and the hum of laughter. Her baby shower feels like a warm hug with lemonade in my hand, and memories of our college nights flooding back. Sadie's glowing, and I'm so happy for her. But my husband Lucas keeps checking his phone, his jaw tight. I catch a woman in a navy dress staring at me from the gift table, and a chill runs through me. Something's off, and I can't shake it. Have you ever felt a moment shift like that? Tell me where you're watching from, and if this resonates, please like and subscribe to hear what happened next. The baby shower was in full swing now, and I was trying to lose myself in the moment. Sadie had pulled everyone into her living room for a diaper-changing race, and the air was thick with giggles and the crinkle of plastic. I stood near the couch, pinning tiny clothespins on a string for the next game, my hands moving on autopilot. Sadie's laugh rang out bright and contagious as she teased a guest struggling with a doll. I wanted to feel that joy, to sink into it, but Lucas's shadow hung over me. His distracted glances at his phone, the way he'd barely smiled all afternoon, it was like a pebble in my shoe. I kept telling myself it was nothing, maybe just work stress, but my gut wouldn't settle. I caught his eye across the room where he leaned against the doorway, arms crossed. I gave him a small wave, hoping for a reassuring nod, but he looked away, his mouth a tight line. My stomach twisted. We'd been married 5 years, and I knew his moods, but this felt different, heavier. I pushed the thought down, focusing on the game. The room was a blur of pink and blue streamers, the scent of vanilla cupcakes mixing with someone's floral perfume. I handed Sadie a timer, our fingers brushing, and she squeezed my hand, her eyes sparkling. "You're the best, Abigail," she said, pulling me into a quick hug. Her warmth made my chest ache, like I was betraying her by worrying about Lucas. As the guests cheered, I felt a tap on my shoulder. It was Lucas, his face pale, his voice low. "We need to talk later," he said, his eyes darting to the crowd. My heart skipped. "What's wrong?" I asked, keeping my voice steady, though my pulse was climbing. He shook his head, almost impatient. "Not here. Just later." Before I could press, he walked off, weaving through the guests toward the kitchen. I stood there, the timer in my hand, suddenly heavy, the room's noise muffled. What could be so urgent he couldn't say it now? Was it his job? Money, or something worse? My mind flashed to a late-night call he'd taken last week, stepping outside to talk. I'd thought nothing of it then, but now it felt like a clue. I forced a smile, joining the game, but my hands fumbled with the clothespins. Sadie's cousin Harper sidled up, her auburn curls bouncing. She was a hairdresser, always buzzing with stories, and today was no different. "Girl, you look like you're solving world peace over here," she teased, nudging me. I laughed, but it felt hollow. Harper didn't notice, launching into a tale about a guest's bad dye job. And that woman in the navy dress, total mystery. Someone's +1, but nobody knows who, she said, nodding toward the corner. My eyes followed, landing on the woman I'd seen earlier. She was sipping a drink now, her gaze flicking toward me, then away. A shiver ran down my spine. Was she connected to Lucas's mood? I shook it off, telling myself I was being paranoid. Harper kept chatting, her voice a lifeline, but my mind was elsewhere. I glanced at Lucas now, talking to an older man I didn't recognize. Their heads bent close. The man had a gray beard and a serious expression, gesturing sharply. Lucas nodded, his shoulders tense. I wanted to march over, demand answers, but the room felt too small, too full of eyes. Instead, I busied myself stacking paper plates, my fingers trembling. Harper followed, still talking. "You know, my husband pulled a stunt like that once," she said, her tone softening. "Kept secrets, said it was for my own good. Nearly broke us." Her words hit like a punch. Was Lucas hiding something to protect me? Or was it something else entirely? I mumbled a response, my throat tight, and excused myself to the kitchen. Alone by the sink, I gripped the counter, the cool granite grounding me. The laughter from the living room felt miles away. I wanted to go back to be the friend Sadie needed, but Lucas's words echoed, "We need to talk later." Later wasn't good enough. I needed to know now, to quiet the storm in my chest. I took a deep breath, splashing water on my wrists, and told myself to hold it together. But as I turned to rejoin the party, I saw Lucas through the window standing by the patio, his phone pressed to his ear. His voice was too low to hear, but his free hand clenched into a fist, and my heart sank deeper. I stepped back into the living room, the buzz of the baby shower pulling me in like a tide, but my chest was tight. Lucas's clenched fist outside the window burned into my mind. I scanned the room hoping to catch Sadie's eye needing her anchor, but she was busy unwrapping a stack of onesies, her smile wide as guests cooed. I wanted to be there with her clapping joking, but my feet felt glued to the floor. The weight of Lucas's secrecy was suffocating, and I couldn't shake the image of him on that call, his voice low guarded. I busied myself collecting empty cups, stacking them in my hands, the plastic crinkling under my grip. The chatter around me blurred into a hum, and I felt like I was watching the party through a glass wall. Harper had moved on to another group, her laughter cutting through the noise, and I envied her ease. I glanced at the woman in the navy dress now seated near the fireplace, flipping through a gift registry book. Her presence nagged at me, a puzzle piece that didn't fit. Was she watching me earlier, or was I imagining things? My mind was spinning, grasping for answers. Sadie called me over, waving a tiny pair of baby socks. "Abigail, look at these. Can you believe it?" Her voice was pure joy, and I forced a grin, crossing the room to join her. I held the socks soft and impossibly small, and for a moment I was grounded, tethered to her happiness. But then I saw Lucas slip back inside his face, still tense, avoiding my gaze. He grabbed a water bottle from the table and stood by the wall, his eyes fixed on the floor. My stomach churned. I handed the socks back to Sadie, mumbling something about checking the kitchen, and made my escape. In the hallway away from the crowd, I leaned against the wall, the cool paint soothing my skin. My hands shook as I pulled out my phone, half tempted to text Lucas to demand he explain right then. But what would I say? Accuse him of something I couldn't name. I shoved the phone back in my pocket, my breath shallow. The hallway was lined with photos, Sadie and Nathan on their wedding day, their honeymoon in Maine, their first house. Their life looked so solid, so sure, and it made my own feel fragile, like it could crack with one wrong move. I heard footsteps and turned to see Lucas approaching, his jaw set. "Abigail, can we step outside?" he asked, his voice clipped. My heart pounded, but I nodded, following him to the front porch. The air was warm, the scent of cut grass heavy, and the distant hum of a lawnmower filled the silence. I crossed my arms, waiting. "What's going on, Lucas?" "You've been acting strange all day," I said, my voice sharper than I meant. He ran a hand through his hair, exasperated. "It's nothing. Just drop it, okay?" His tone stung like I was the problem for asking. "Nothing." I stepped closer, my voice rising. "You're sneaking off for calls, snapping at me, and now you want me to just let it go." He looked away, his shoulders rigid, and I felt a surge of anger. 5 years of marriage, and he was shutting me out like this. I reached into his jacket, hanging on the porch railing, fishing for something, anything to explain his mood. My fingers brushed a folded paper, and I pulled it out, a crumpled note with an address scrawled in his handwriting. 1427 Maple Drive. No name, no context, just a faint coffee stain in the corner like it had been carried for days. "What's this?" I held it up, my voice trembling. Lucas's eyes widened and he reached for it, but I stepped back. "Abigail, it's not what you think," he said, softer now, almost pleading. "Then what is it?" I demanded, my throat tight. He opened his mouth, then closed it, shaking his head. "I can't. Not here." His refusal was a knife twisting deeper. I stuffed the note in my pocket, my hands shaking, and turned back toward the house. "Fine. Keep your secrets," I said, my voice breaking. Inside, Sadie was cutting the cake, her laughter pulling me back to the party, but it felt like a different world. I stood by the dessert table, forcing a smile as guests passed, but my mind was racing. Was Lucas hiding an affair, a debt, something worse? The address burned in my pocket, a question I couldn't answer. I looked at Sadie. Her face lit up, oblivious to my storm, and guilt washed over me. This was her day, and I was falling apart. But Lucas's silence was louder than the party, and I knew I couldn't let it go. I stood frozen by the dessert table, the crumpled note in my pocket feeling like a stone. Sadie's laughter as she sliced the cake was a distant echo, the baby shower's warmth now suffocating. Lucas's refusal to explain the address, his sharp, "I can't" on the porch, replayed in my head, each word a fresh cut. I wanted to storm out, drag him somewhere private, and force the truth out, but the room was full of eyes and I couldn't make a scene. Not here, not on Sadie's day. I grabbed a napkin, pretending to wipe my hands, but really just needing something to grip. The note's coffee-stained edge poked at my thoughts. 1427 Maple Drive. Was it a meeting place? A secret he'd been keeping for weeks? My mind spun through possibilities, each worse than the last. I glanced at Lucas now, near the back door. His shoulders hunched as he typed furiously on his phone. My chest burned. How dare he act like I was the one overreacting? Sadie caught my eye, waving me over to help with the cake plates. I plastered on a smile, crossing the room, but my legs felt heavy, like wading through mud. "You okay, Abigail?" she asked, her brow furrowing, as she handed me a stack of plates. Her concern was so genuine, so kind, it made my throat tighten. "Just tired," I lied, stacking the plates too fast, one nearly slipping. She nodded, but her eyes lingered, and I knew she wasn't convinced. I turned away, busying myself with the plates, guilt gnawing at me for hiding this from her. The party was winding down, guests starting to gather their purses and say goodbyes. I moved to the living room, collecting stray cups, when Lucas appeared at my side, his voice low and urgent. "We have to go. Now." His words hit like a slap, and I spun to face him, my hands full of cups. "What?" "We can't just leave," I hissed, keeping my voice down. His eyes were wide, almost desperate, but he didn't explain, just grabbed my arm, gently steering me toward the door. My face flushed with embarrassment as I caught Sadie watching, her smile, faltering confusion clear in her expression. I pulled my arm free, setting the cups on a table, my heart racing. "Lucas, this is ridiculous. What's so urgent?" I demanded, my voice sharp but low, aware of the guests nearby. He leaned in, his breath warm against my ear. "Please, Abigail, trust me. We need to leave." Trust him, after his secrecy, his evasions. My anger flared, but his eyes held something new, a flicker of fear that made my stomach lurch. I wanted to scream, to demand answers, but the weight of the moment held me back. As we moved toward the front door, the woman in the navy dress, Lila, stepped into my path, her smile polite but sharp. "You're Abigail, right?" she said, her voice smooth, like she'd practiced the line. I nodded, a hot off guard, my hands clenching at my sides. "We need to talk soon," she added, slipping a business card into my hand before gliding away. The card was plain. Just her name and a phone number, no job title, no hint of who she was. My pulse hammered as I tucked it into my pocket next to the note, Lucas's grip on my elbow tightening. We stepped onto the porch, the evening air cool against my flushed skin. Sadie's house glowed behind us, string lights twinkling in the backyard, a cruel contrast to the storm inside me. Lucas led me to our car, his silence deafening. I glanced back, seeing Sadie at the door, waving, her face a mix of worry and confusion. My heart sank. I'd left her without a proper goodbye, all because of Lucas's cryptic urgency. As we reached the car, I turned to him, my voice trembling with fury. "You better have a damn good reason for this," I said, slamming the door as I slid into the passenger seat, the weight of his secrets pressing down harder than ever. The car hummed as Lucas pulled onto the road, the streetlights casting fleeting shadows across his face. I sat rigid in the passenger seat, my hands clenched in my lap, the business card and crumpled note in my pocket like ticking bombs. His silence was a wall, and every second of it fueled my anger. I stared out the window, the suburban houses blurring past their lit windows, mocking me with their normalcy. My mind churned, replaying Lila's cryptic words, the way she'd looked at me like she knew something I didn't. And Lucas, with his urgent whispers and refusal to explain, was tearing me apart. "Talk to me," I said, my voice low, barely controlled. "You drag me out of Sadie's shower, humiliate me in front of everyone, and now you won't even look at me." He gripped the steering wheel tighter, his knuckles pale. "Abigail, I'm trying to protect you," he said, his voice strained, eyes fixed on the road. "Protect me from what?" I snapped, turning to face him. From whatever you're hiding, from that address, from Lila. His jaw twitched at her name and my heart sank. He knew her. Of course he did. I leaned back, my breath shallow, the air in the car too thick. Just tell me the truth, Lucas. Whatever it is, I can handle it. He shook his head, a bitter laugh escaping. You really didn't see it, did you? He said, almost to himself. My stomach dropped. See what I asked? My voice rising, panic creeping in. He glanced at me, his eyes dark with something I couldn't read, then looked away. Nathan, he said finally, his voice flat. At the shower. He was with Lila. By the garage. I saw them. The words hit like a punch, stealing my breath. Nathan, Sadie's husband, the man who'd kissed her forehead an hour ago, laughing with her over baby names, flirting with Lila. I shook my head, disbelief warring with the image Lucas painted. You're wrong, I said, my voice trembling. Nathan wouldn't do that. Sadie's pregnant, for God's sake. Lucas's eyes stayed on the road, his silence louder than any answer. I saw them, Abigail, he said, softer now, but it felt like a blade. His hand on her arm, their heads close, laughing like no one else was there. My mind raced, trying to find a flaw in his story. Nathan was charming, sure, always quick with a smile, but cheating on Sadie, who was carrying his child. I wanted to scream that Lucas was lying, that he was deflecting his own secrets onto someone else. But a memory flickered unbidden of Nathan at a barbecue last summer, his arm around a coworker, his laugh too warm, Sadie brushing it off as his friendly nature. My chest tightened, doubt creeping in like poison. Why didn't you tell me sooner? I asked, my voice breaking. Why let me stand there clueless while you played detective? Lucas sighed, his shoulders slumping. I didn't want to ruin her day. Or yours. His excuse felt hollow and my anger flared hotter. Ruin my day, I said, my voice sharp. You think this is better? Dragging me out? Dropping this bomb and leaving me to pick up the pieces? He didn't answer, just turned onto our street, the car's engine a low growl in the silence. I pressed my hands to my face, trying to steady my breathing, but my thoughts were a storm. If Lucas was right, Sadie's world was about to shatter, and I'd be the one to break it. But what if he was wrong, or worse, lying? The note, the address, Lila's card. They all swirled in my mind, pieces of a puzzle I couldn't solve. I looked at Lucas, his profile sharp in the dim light, and felt a chasm between us wider than ever. He pulled into our driveway, the car idling, and I knew whatever came next would change everything. I sat on the couch in our living room, the clock ticking past midnight, its steady rhythm mocking my racing heart. Lucas was in the kitchen, the clink of a glass against the counter, the only sound besides my uneven breaths. The car ride home had left me raw, his words about Nathan and Lila echoing like a bad dream I couldn't wake from. I clutched my phone, Sadie's number glowing on the screen, my thumb hovering over the call button. I needed to warn her, to protect her, but the thought of her voice breaking, of her world collapsing, made my stomach churn. I set the phone down, my hands trembling, and paced to the window. The street outside was dark, our neighbor's porch light a faint glow. My reflection stared back, pale and hollow like a stranger. How had the day gone so wrong? Just hours ago I'd been laughing at Sadie's baby shower, and now I was drowning in doubt. Lucas's claim about Nathan felt like a grenade, and I didn't know if I was holding the pin or the explosion. I grabbed my phone again, dialing Sadie before I could overthink it. She answered on the second ring, her voice sleepy but warm. Abigail, everything okay? The concern in her tone was a knife to my chest. I opened my mouth to tell her about Nathan, about Lila, but the words caught heavy and jagged. I just needed to check on you, I said, my voice thin. She laughed softly. You're sweet, but I'm fine. Nathan's just being his usual flirty self, charming everyone. You know how he is. Her dismissal hit hard, confirming Lucas's story in a way I hadn't expected. I mumbled a goodbye, my throat tight, and hung up the room, spinning. I sank onto the couch, my mind racing. Sadie's trust in Nathan was unshakable, but Lucas's words, his certainty, gnawed at me. I pulled out Lila's business card, its edges creased from my grip, and typed her number into my phone. My fingers shook as I sent a text. Can we meet tomorrow? Need to talk about the shower? Her reply came seconds later, a single line, 10 a.m. Brood awakening on 5th. I'll tell you everything. Everything. The words sent a chill through me, promising answers I wasn't sure I wanted. Lucas walked in holding a glass of water, his face weary. I stood, my anger flaring. You need to tell me everything, Lucas. Now, I said, my voice sharp. He set the glass down, his eyes meeting mine, and for the first time, he didn't look away. I've been watching Nathan for weeks, he said, his voice low. He's been meeting Lila, sneaking around. I didn't want to believe it either, but it's real. My breath caught the room tilting. Weeks. He'd known for weeks and said nothing. Why didn't you tell me? I asked, my voice rising, tears stinging my eyes. You let me walk into that shower blind, let me stand there smiling while you knew. He stepped closer, his hands raised like he could calm me. I was trying to be sure, Abigail. I didn't want to hurt you or Sadie without proof. Proof. The word hit like a slap. I turned away, my hands pressed to my face, trying to hold myself together. But the truth was sinking in heavy and cold, and I felt like I was breaking apart. I grabbed my phone again, pulling up Lila's text, my heart pounding. Tomorrow I'd face her, hear her side, and maybe find a way to save Sadie from the pain I knew was coming. But as I stood there, Lucas watching me, the weight of his secrecy and Nathan's betrayal crushed me, and I didn't know how to keep going. The coffee shop was a blur of clinking mugs and murmured conversations when I walked in at 10 sharp, my pulse hammering. Brood awakening smelled of roasted beans and cinnamon, but the warmth did nothing to ease the knot in my chest. Lila was already there, seated at a corner table, her navy scarf draped over the chair. She looked up as I approached, her eyes steady, almost pitying, and I felt exposed, like she could see every crack in me. I slid into the seat across from her, my hands clasped tight to stop their shaking, and waited. You wanted to know about Nathan, Lila? Said, her voice calm, cutting through the noise. She leaned forward, sliding her phone across the table, the screen open to a chain of texts. I scanned them, my breath catching. Messages from Nathan, flirty at first, then explicit, time-stamped over months. This isn't all, she said, pulling out a small USB drive. Voicemails, emails, proof he's been lying to Sadie for a long time. Not just with me. My stomach lurched, the words blurring on the screen. I wanted to push the phone away to unsee it, but I couldn't move. You're his coworker, I asked, my voice hoarse, grasping for something solid. Lila shook her head, her lips tightening. Ex-coworker. I left the firm last year. Nathan didn't stop reaching out. She tapped the USB drive, her voice dropping. He told me Sadie was distant, that their marriage was over. I believed him at first. Her words were a punch, each one landing harder. Sadie, my Sadie, painted as the problem while Nathan played the victim. I pressed my hands to my temples, the coffee shop's chatter fading to a dull roar. Why tell me now? I asked, my voice breaking. Lila's eyes softened, but her tone stayed firm. Because you're her best friend. Someone has to know before she's blindsided with a baby on the way. The mention of Sadie's pregnancy twisted the knife deeper, and I felt tears prick my eyes. I thought of her at the shower, unwrapping tiny socks, her face lit with hope. How could Nathan do this? How could I tell her? Lila leaned back, watching me, and I hated how composed she was while I unraveled. There's more, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. She opened an email on her phone, a forwarded message from Nathan dated last week. It was to another woman, someone I didn't know, promising a weekend away, the same lies he'd fed Lila. My heart stopped. This wasn't a one-time mistake. Nathan was a serial cheater, weaving a web of deceit while Sadie planned their future. I shoved the phone back, my hands trembling, the USB drive cold against my palm as I gripped it. The barista, a young woman with a kind smile, paused by our table, offering a refill. You okay? She asked, her voice soft, and I nodded, though my face must have betrayed me. She lingered a moment, then moved on, and I wished I could follow her escape this moment. But Lila's gaze held me, and the truth she'd laid bare was a weight I couldn't shed. I thought of my own father, his affairs that broke my mom the nights I'd heard her cry through the walls. History was repeating, and I was helpless, caught in the same cycle of betrayal. I stood my chair, scraping the floor, needing air, needing to move. "I need time," I said, my voice barely audible. Lila nodded, sliding the USB drive toward me. "Take it. Show her when you're ready." I slipped it into my purse, its weight pulling me down, and stumbled out into the morning light. The street was alive with people, cars, life, but I felt hollow, the truth about Nathan ripping through me, leaving nothing but shards. I stood in my kitchen, sunlight spilling through the window, warming the tiles under my feet. The USB drive sat on the counter, its black plastic glinting like a challenge. Lila's revelations yesterday had left me shattered, Nathan's betrayal, a wound that wouldn't stop bleeding. But this morning, something shifted. I couldn't let Sadie walk blindly into this pain, not when I held the truth. My hands steadied as I picked up the drive, its weight no longer crushing, but urgent, a call to act. I set a kettle on the stove, the soft hiss grounding me as I planned my next move. Telling Sadie would break her, but hiding it would be worse, a betrayal of its own. I needed to be careful to soften the blow without softening the truth. My phone buzzed, a text from Lucas asking if I was okay. I ignored it, still raw from his secrecy, and focused on Sadie. I had to do this right. I grabbed a notebook, my pen scratching as I started a letter. Words poured out, raw and honest, about our friendship, about the baby shower, about Nathan. I wrote of my love for her, how I'd give anything to spare her this pain, but she deserved to know. My hand cramped, but I kept going, each sentence a step toward courage. I paused, remembering the pressed flower I'd tucked away from the shower, a delicate pink bloom from the centerpieces. I slipped it into the notebook, a quiet symbol of our bond, something to hold on to when the truth hit. The kettle whistled and I poured tea, the steam curling around my face. I sipped the warmth, settling my nerves, and thought of Reese, Lucas's sister. She'd faced a friend's betrayal once, come out stronger. I needed her perspective, her steadiness. I called her and she agreed to meet at a nearby park, her voice calm but firm. "You're doing the right thing," she said, and I clung to those words like a lifeline. At the park, Reese sat on a bench, her dark hair pulled back, her eyes kind but sharp. I told her everything, the words spilling out, Nathan's texts, Lila's proof, my fear of losing Sadie. She listened, nodding, then shared her own story, how she'd confronted a friend who'd lied about a debt, how the truth had hurt but healed. "Sadie might push you away at first," she said, "but she'll need you later. Be gentle, but don't back down." Her advice was a map guiding me through the fog. I walked home, the letter in my bag, the flower's faint scent lingering. For the first time since the shower, I felt a spark of strength, a resolve to face this head on. I wasn't just Abigail, the friend who stood by, but someone who could act, who could carry the truth no matter how heavy. The kitchen was quiet now, the tea cold, but inside me something was rising, a fire ready to burn through the fear. I drove to Sadie's house as the sun dipped low, casting golden streaks across the dashboard. The letter, folded with the pressed flower, lay in my purse beside the USB drive, their weight steadying me. Reese's words echoed in my mind, urging gentleness but firmness, and I clung to them, my resolve hardening with each mile. I wasn't just delivering bad news. I was choosing honesty, choosing Sadie, even if it cost me. The thought of her pain twisted my gut, but silence would hurt her more. I parked outside her house, the porch light glowing, a stroller already parked by the steps. My heart pounded as I walked up, the evening air cool against my skin. I knocked and Sadie opened the door, her hair messy, a dish towel slung over her shoulder. "Abigail." "What's up?" she said, her smile bright but tired. Her warmth made my throat tighten, and for a moment I wanted to run to keep her in this bubble of joy. But I stepped inside, my hands steady. Her living room was cluttered with baby gifts, a half-built crib leaning against the wall. The air smelled of lavender and fresh laundry, a stark contrast to the storm I carried. We sat on the couch and I pulled out the letter, my fingers brushing the flower's delicate edges. "Sadie, I need you to read this. I said, my voice calm but firm, handing it to her. Her brow furrowed, but she took it, unfolding the paper slowly, her eyes scanning my words. As she read, her face changed, the smile fading, her hands trembling. "What is this?" she asked, her voice sharp, almost accusing. I took a breath, meeting her gaze. "It's about Nathan. About things he's done. There's proof, Sadie, on this drive." I slid the USB drive across the coffee table, its click against the wood, loud in the silence. Her eyes widened and she stood the letter crumpling in her fist. "You're saying he's cheating on me now?" Her voice cracked, anger and disbelief colliding. I nodded, my chest aching. I didn't want to believe it either, but it's true. Lila showed me texts, emails, voicemails. He's been lying for months. Sadie's face twisted and she threw the letter down, pacing to the window. "You're wrong, Abigail. You have to be. Nathan loves me. He's excited about the baby." Her words were desperate, clinging to a truth I knew was gone. I stayed seated, my voice soft but steady. "I love you, Sadie. That's why I'm here. You deserve to know." She turned, tears streaming down her face, and her voice rose. "Why are you doing this? Why ruin everything?" The accusation stung, but I held her gaze, my own eyes burning. "Because I'd want you to tell me," I said, my voice breaking. "Because you're my family." The room fell silent, her sobs the only sound, and I stood crossing to her. I wrapped my arms around her and she collapsed against me, her body shaking. We stood there, the baby onesie on the coffee table, a silent witness to her shattered dreams. I stepped back, my hand resting on her shoulder, and saw the shift in her eyes from anger to devastation. She sank onto the couch, clutching the onesie, and I knelt beside her, my heart heavy but certain. I'd done what I had to, laid the truth bare, and though it hurt, I felt a quiet strength settle in me. I squeezed her hand, my eyes locked on hers, and in that moment, I knew I'd carry her through this, no matter what came next. A week had passed since I left Sadie's house, the memory of her tears and the crumpled letter still sharp in my mind. I walked through the park near her place, the late afternoon sun filtering through the oaks, casting long shadows on the path. Kids laughed on a nearby swing set, their voices bright, but I felt heavy, like I was carrying the weight of her broken trust. I'd expected anger, maybe silence, but not this quiet distance, like a door half closed between us. Sadie had texted me yesterday asking to meet here, her message brief but polite. I arrived early. Sitting on a bench, my hands wrapped around a paper coffee cup, the warmth fading against my palms. The park smelled of damp grass and charcoal from a distant barbecue, grounding me as I waited. My mind replayed our last moment, her clutching the baby onesie, my hand on her shoulder. I'd hoped the truth would free her, but now I wasn't sure. She appeared on the path, pushing a stroller she hadn't used yet, her steps slow, deliberate. Her face was pale, her eyes red-rimmed, but she held her chin high like she was steeling herself. I stood, my heart in my throat, and she stopped a few feet away, her hands gripping the stroller's handle. "Abigail," she said, her voice steady but thin. I confronted Nathan. The words landed like a stone, and I nodded, waiting, my breath shallow. He admitted it, she continued, her gaze dropping to the ground. "Everything. Lila, the other women, the lies. He's been staying at his brother's place since." My chest tightened, relief mixing with sorrow. I'd wanted her to know, but hearing it confirmed, seeing her stand there hollowed out, made me ache. "I'm so sorry, Sadie," I said, my voice soft, stepping closer. She shook her head, a small, bitter smile flickering. "Don't be. You did what I couldn't." We started walking, the stroller's wheels crunching on the gravel path. She told me she was moving in with her mom for a while, needing space to think, to plan for the baby. Her voice was calm, but each word felt like a wound she was stitching closed. I listened, my coffee cup now cold, my fingers tracing its lid. I wanted to hug her, to promise it would be okay, but her quiet strength held me back, like she was rebuilding herself step by step. A breeze rustled the leaves, and she stopped, turning to me. "I don't know if I can stay with him," she said, her eyes searching mine. "But I'm glad I know. I just need time." Her honesty was a gift, fragile and raw, and I knotted, my throat tight. I'm here whenever you're ready, I said, meaning every word. She looked away, her hands tightening on the stroller, and we stood there, the park's noise fading the space between us, heavy with unspoken pain. I left the park with Sadie's words still heavy in my ears, her quiet resolve haunting me as I drove to work. The office was a small marketing firm, all glass walls and humming computers, but today it felt like a maze of whispers. I sat at my desk, sorting through emails, the glow of my screen casting shadows on my hands. The news of Nathan's affair had spread a quiet ripple among our mutual friends, and I felt their eyes on me, curious, judging as if I'd stirred the trouble myself. I tried to focus, clicking through a campaign draft, but my mind wandered to Sadie alone at her mom's, packing her life into boxes. My coworker Miles leaned over the cubicle wall, his voice low, probing. Heard about Sadie's husband. Rough stuff. You knew, didn't you? His tone wasn't cruel, just nosy, but it stung like I was on trial. I straightened my voice, cool. It's not my story to tell Miles. He raised his hands, backing off, but the air felt thicker, tainted by gossip. Later in the break room, I poured coffee, the machine's gurgle loud against the silence. A new hire, Jenna, was there, flipping through a magazine, unaware of the undercurrent. I envied her obliviousness. Then I heard my name, a hushed murmur from the hallway. Two colleagues, their voices sharp, speculating about Sadie, about me. She must have known for ages, one said. Why else would she blow it up like that? My grip tightened on the mug, the heat biting my palm. They didn't know the half of it, the nights I'd spent wrestling with the truth, the weight of that USB drive. But their words cut, painting me as the villain, not the friend who'd risked everything. I walked back to my desk, my steps deliberate, and found a small note tucked under my keyboard. Sadie's handwriting, neat and familiar. Thank you, Abigail. For everything. My breath caught the words, a quiet balm against the office's sting. I slipped the note into my drawer, my fingers lingering, and felt a surge of protectiveness. When Miles passed by again, dropping another comment about drama, I looked up, my eyes steady. Enough. I said, my voice low but firm, and he froze, nodding before walking away. I wasn't just defending Sadie. I was claiming my own space, my own truth. That evening, Lucas and I sat in a community center, a couples workshop we'd signed up for after our trust frayed. The room smelled of stale coffee, folding chairs creaking under strangers. The facilitator asked us to share one thing we wanted to rebuild, and Lucas spoke first, his voice soft. I want her to know I'm here, no secrets. His words were simple, but they landed deep, and I reached for his hand, my anger softening, not gone, but shifting. We weren't fixed, but we were trying. And that was enough for now. I drove home alone, the city lights blurring past Sadie's note, and Lucas's words circling in my mind. I'd acted, spoken the truth, and it had cost me, left me raw under the weight of others' judgments. The road stretched dark ahead, and I felt myself sinking not into despair, but into a quiet, heavy stillness, the kind that comes when you've given all you have and must wait to see what remains. I woke early, the sky outside my bedroom window, a soft gray promising dawn. My backyard stretched quiet beyond the glass, the grass still damp from last night's rain. I slipped on a sweater, grabbed my journal, and stepped outside, the air cool and sharp with the scent of wet earth. A single cardinal perched on the fence, its red feathers a flicker of life, and I settled into a wicker chair, my coffee steaming in a chipped mug. The world felt still, like it was holding its breath, and for the first time in weeks I let myself do the same. My journal lay open, pages filled with jagged thoughts from the past month, the baby shower, Nathan's betrayal, Sadie's pain. I traced the ink, my fingers slow, and began to write not about the hurt, but about what came after. I wrote of the park, Sadie's steeled eyes, the note she'd left at work. I wrote of Lucas, his hand in mine at the workshop, a bridge we were rebuilding step by careful step. The words flowed, not rushed but steady, like a river finding its path. I paused, sipping my coffee, the bitterness grounding me. The cardinal hopped along the fence unbothered, and I envied its ease. I'd been carrying so much, the weight of truth, of judgment, of fear, but here in this quiet corner of my world, it felt lighter. Not gone, but manageable. like a stone I could set down. I thought of my mom years ago after my dad's affairs came to light. She'd planted roses in our old yard, her hands in the dirt finding peace in small acts. I understood her now, the need to create something living amid the wreckage. Lucas stirred inside, his footsteps soft on the kitchen floor. He stepped out a blanket over his shoulders and sat beside me, his presence warm but not pressing. "Couldn't sleep?" he asked, his voice low, careful. I shook my head, closing my journal. "Just thinking," I said, my eyes on the cardinal now flitting to a tree. He nodded and we sat in silence, the kind that didn't need filling. I thought of our fights, his secrets, but also his efforts since the way he'd shown up, flawed but trying. "I'm scared," I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. "Of losing more than we already have." He reached for my hand, his grip firm. "We'll figure it out," he said, and I believed him, not blindly but enough. I stood brushing off my jeans and walked to a bare patch of soil near the shed. I'd bought herb seeds last week, basil and thyme on a whim. Kneeling, I dug small holes with my hands, the dirt cool under my nails. Each seed felt like a promise, small but real, something to tend while the world settled. Lucas watched, his eyes soft, and I felt a quiet strength, not loud, but deep, rooting me to this moment, this choice to keep growing. I left the backyard as the sun climbed higher, its light softening the morning chill. Inside, I set my journal aside and drove to a diner down the street, a place Sadie and I used to haunt in our 20s. The bell above the door jingled as I stepped in, the air thick with the scent of frying bacon and maple syrup. Sadie was already there, tucked into a vinyl booth, a basket of fries between her hands. Her smile was small but real, and I slid in across from her, my heart easing at the sight. "You look good," I said, meaning it. Her eyes were brighter, less shadowed, though a quiet weight lingered. She shrugged, pushing the fries toward me. "Therapy's helping. So's Mom's cooking." We laughed, the sound soft like a memory of who we'd been. She told me about her sessions, how she was untangling her anger, her plans for the baby. "I might do this alone," she said, her voice steady, not sad but certain. I nodded, my fingers tracing the edge of a fry, pride swelling in my chest. The diner buzzed around us, plates clinking, a jukebox humming in the corner. I thought of our old nights here, splitting milkshakes, dreaming of futures we couldn't predict. We'd been so young, so sure life would unfold neatly. Now, with Nathan gone, her world reshaped. Sadie was carving a new path, and I was learning to walk mine. I reached into my bag, pulling out a small care package. I'd made, a tin of tea, a candle, a bookmark I'd pressed with a quote about courage. "For you," I said, sliding it across the table. Her eyes softened, and she touched the bookmark, her fingers lingering. "You're too much, Abigail," she said, her voice thick, and I saw the gratitude in her gaze. A waitress, her name tag reading Wendy, stopped by, refilling our water with a grin. "You two look like you've got stories," she said, and we smiled, the moment light but warm. Sadie and I ate in comfortable silence, the fries salty and crisp, the world outside the diner fading. I thought of my mom again, not her pain, but her quiet strength, the way she'd rebuilt after loss. I was starting to understand that healing wasn't loud, wasn't a victory lap. It was this sharing fries, choosing to show up, letting time soften the edges. We paid and stepped outside, the afternoon air, warm, a breeze carrying the scent of blooming jasmine. Sadie hugged me, her arms tight, and I held her back, feeling the strength in her and us. "We're okay," she whispered, and I nodded, my throat tight. I watched her walk to her car, her steps sure, and I stood there, the diner's neon sign flickering behind me. The world felt steady, not perfect, but enough, and I breathed slow, letting the moment settle deep within me. Months had passed, and I was in my living room, the morning light filtering through sheer curtains, casting a soft glow on the hardwood. A small envelope sat on the coffee table, Sadie's handwriting on the front, a photo tucked inside. I opened it, pulling out a picture of her newborn, a tiny girl with wide eyes swaddled in a knit blanket. My heart swelled, and I smiled, tracing the image with my finger. Sadie had sent it with a note, just a few words, "Meet Lily. We're okay." Those words carried a weight, a quiet victory after everything. I leaned back on the couch, the house still the hum of a distant lawnmower, the only sound. My life had settled into a new rhythm, one I hadn't expected, but was learning to love. Mornings were for coffee, and quiet afternoons for work, evenings for Lucas and me, cooking simple dinners, talking more openly than we had in years. The scars from the baby shower from Nathan's betrayal were still there, but they'd faded like ink left too long in the sun. I stood crossing to the mantel, where I kept a small wooden box for keepsakes. I opened it, placing Sadie's photo inside next to a folded letter I'd written to myself weeks ago, a promise to keep moving forward. The act felt small, but it grounded me, a reminder of how far I'd come. I thought of the days after Sadie moved to her mom's, the silence that had stretched between us, the fear I'd lost her for good. But she'd called one night, her voice steady, asking me to visit, and we'd rebuilt slowly like mending a torn quilt. Lucas was at work now, his new habit of leaving sticky notes on the fridge making me smile. Today's read. Dinner at 7, love you. I touched the note, my fingers lingering, and felt a warmth that wasn't there before. We'd fought, stumbled, but we'd also listened, learned to say the hard things. It wasn't perfect, but it was ours, and that was enough. I grabbed my keys, heading out to meet Sadie and Lily. At a nearby playground, the promise of their laughter pulling me forward. The drive was short, the streets lined with blooming dogwoods, their petals scattered like confetti. I parked and saw Sadie by a swing set. Lily in her arms, her tiny hands grasping at the air. Sadie waved, her face bright, and I walked over the grass, soft under my shoes. We hugged, Lily cooing between us, and for a moment the world felt whole, the pain of the past a distant hum. I took Lily, her weight warm and solid, and we sat on a blanket, the sun warming our shoulders, the future open and quiet before us. As I held Lily, her tiny fingers curling around mine, I looked at Sadie, her eyes tracing the horizon where the playground met the sky. We talked about small things, her new apartment, the way Lily's laugh lit up a room. The conversation was easy, unhurried, like slipping into an old sweater. But beneath it, I felt a shift, a clarity that hadn't been there before. The months since the baby shower had carved something new in me, a quiet strength born from facing the truth, no matter how sharp its edges. I thought of the nights I'd spent questioning myself, wondering if I'd done right by Sadie, by Lucas, by me. Each doubt had been a step leading me here, to this blanket under the open sky, to a place where I could breathe without bracing for the next blow. I'd learned that healing wasn't about erasing the hurt or pretending it didn't happen. It was about carrying it differently, letting it shape you without defining you. Sadie's resilience, Lucas's effort, my own stubborn heart, they'd all taught me that. I handed Lily back, watching Sadie cradle her, and I saw my own mom's face years ago, smiling through her pain as she tucked me in. She'd carried her truth, her losses, and still found joy. I was doing the same, not perfectly, but honestly. The lesson wasn't grand or loud. It was simple, woven into the everyday. Truth hurts, but it also frees. It strips you bare, forces you to see what's real, and in that rawness you find who you are, who you can be. For me, it was a woman who chose love over silence, who stood by her friend, who rebuilt trust with her husband, one small step at a time. I looked out at the playground, kids chasing each other, their shouts rising like music. Life kept moving, messy and beautiful, and I was part of it, not just watching from the sidelines. I'd stopped running from the hard things, stopped hiding from the truth. That was my freedom, my way forward, and it felt like enough. Sadie touched my arm, her smile soft, and I knew we'd carry each other, not because we had to, but because we chose to. What truth has set you free? Even when it hurt, I'd love to hear your story in the comments, to know what's carried you through. If this resonated, please like and subscribe, share it with someone who needs it. Thank you for listening, for being here. Here's to healing, to moving forward, one quiet step at a time.